have the roll call. So we will start with Ray
Johnson present.
and Mike,
Adam's here.
and Byers is also here. Robert
Alessandra here.
and Debbie. Great. So we are all here, all of us chickens. Let's move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. That would be you.
Right.
That's good.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I think if you are willing to lead us every time, we are willing to be led.
Perfect.
Great voice.
Yes, that was wonderful. Thank you very much.
Not a problem at all.
Let's move on to next item B, then that would be our patrol report as delivered by our very own Deputy Sam Perez. Take it away.
I think it's on PowerPoint now.
Give me one moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can you go back one, please? See, it seems that people always ask me for my email address, so I had to put it on our PowerPoint here, along with the non-emergency number, and also I believe it is now on the district website. That way, if you want to contact me or they want to use a non-emergency phone line, it's right there, available now. So if anybody wants to just pause it in the future to pull it up, it's there. If not, it's on our website. All right, next. Postal has been a big issue up in the Hill in the last few months. Just to get some more clarity to it and everything. It says that basically right here that
Why do we
when
read
you,
it?
what was that? It basically says right here that basically if you mess with the mail at all in any fashion, whether you take it, you have possession of it, it's a crime. And under the Title 18 USC 1708, it's punishable up to 5 years, well, no more than 5 years. So that's a big bite. Whereas with us, it's not as big as a bite as with the federal government. So that's what we're pursuing with. Okay, next. I know in the past I've always said that I prefer deterrence rather than investigating, because when you, if a crime occurs, it takes a lot to try to locate items, whereas it's a lot easier to deter crimes. From talking to the postal inspector, one of our locations that's really ever hit is the one that's pictured right here on the PowerPoint. Yes, it gets hit, but nowhere as much as the other ones that are located in our district. So as always, I recommend deterrence. I've been speaking to some of the HOAs and the POAs on the news. It always comes up, and issues that arise are the absence of power at the locations. There's no power because it's not on private property for the most part, and lack of cellular reception for real-time notifications. As for solutions that I've recommended, that the one that's pictured right here has solar power. So there's no need for having power ran to it. It's self-sufficient. The cameras, they make cameras now where basically even our trail cameras, that they record over themselves. So the battery pack should also be done with solar, and they hold up to 32 gigs of memory for the most part. That's pretty much the standard. Some hold more, but the standard's 32. And quite frankly, if an issue arises, typically they'll record a video up to, up to 3 days. So it's tracking everything that's happened at that location for at least 3 days. So once someone notifies it, or the post office notifies me, I can go out there and retrieve the video or contact whoever is in charge of the cameras, whether it be the HOAs or the POAs. So that's one of the recommendations. I Googled it the other day, and next. I mean, they came up right away on the internet for like, if you want to do the one that's posted on the picture, it's right there on the left. I'm not saying that we're endorsing this or anything. I'm just saying that came up right away in terms of if you wanted to purchase one. Obviously, we purchase signs indicating there's cameras in use and that deters people, or it can be more extravagant and like the one that riders a pole that actually you could put on property and solar powered with camera and signage. Like I said, I can't tell anybody what to do anything with their funds or anything, but these tend to deter crime, and that's what I push the most in regards to the thefts, and that pertains to whether it's your home, your business, or your mail. Okay, next. Pertaining to somewhat mail, we had a package theft that occurred over the weekend, and luckily the homeowner had a ring type camera mounted on their door, next to the door, so we were able to get footage and pictures. So that's been disseminated to my department, and hopefully we'll put some out here and we'll have them posted up once again at all the we have signage for meetings and everything next to the mailboxes. So hopefully if you recognize the individual, you can contact me, and we can go deal with this individual. Okay, next. In terms of mail, at the end of the last month, I had a partner that week, and we saw a vehicle at the lookout, the notorious lookout, with expired tags. We contacted the two subjects in the vehicle, and when we walked up, the whole front of the vehicle was full of mail. We call that a clue in law enforcement, and we took them out of the vehicle, went through the mail. Obviously, it was not theirs. It was from San Juan Capistrano. So they went down there, did their business, and they came up to our location, an area. So they went to jail. And obviously, we're trying to push for the postal inspector for prosecution, and not our courts. For you, Robert, since you asked me about marijuana all the time, so far I've been getting tips. I'm sorry?
I said he's running low.
Okay. In regards to marijuana cultivation, I've been getting tips. I've been getting tips up on the hill regarding greenhouses. That greenhouse is not one of the greenhouses I located up in Duluth, but so I had to get a visual aid in there. But we located basically 6 greenhouses up in Duluth. We followed up with Star 9 as our helicopter. You probably heard about it. I was flying over this last month. I flew over 2 times, confirmed the tips that I received, along with other investigative techniques that I won't go into for obvious reasons. And then we use code enforcement. From dealing with my partners that deal with marijuana out in the other areas of the county, we're using more code enforcement now. Basically what it comes down to is code enforcement goes there. I go with them for safety reasons, obviously, because that's their product, I guess, and they want to protect it sometimes. And they cite the property owner. And basically the property owner has 10 days to resolve the issue. That includes the greenhouse and other marijuana. If they're out of compliance, after 10 days, it's a $1,000 fine per day. So in a lot of these properties that I went to, no one lives there, and the people that own the property don't live in our community. So they're basically using our land. Well, it's their land, but they're basically doing their criminal activity in our area. So that's being taken care of also. And the last one, I believe, last slide. Any questions?
Great information. I'm really glad that we're following up on all the marijuana growing, and sounds like there's a lot of absentee owners that are thinking Duluth is a great place to grow some grass, I guess. I did want to ask you that beautiful male grouping that you showed there, that looks like it is on, was it Via Santa Rosa?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my question to you was, I saw the cost, it looked like it was $1,125. Was that paid by the POA, as far as you know?
In regards to that picture was off the internet. I think it was 1425, ma'am.
Oh.
But I just pulled that off Google, and there was
Yeah.
there was other websites that also sold those solar powered lights.
Right.
So they're out there. Who purchased it? I have no idea. Most likely it was probably the HOA, because from talking to the postal inspector, Amanda Cessna from the post office, she informed me that that's the HOA's responsibility to maintain them, the actual community mailboxes.
I
So
know
most
who-
likely it was part.
Hello, I know who did it. Susan
Yep.
Eggy. Susan Eggy.
Did it?
Yeah, we got that up prior to all you being on the board, I'd say maybe 8 years ago. But you can contact Lucy Ralston. But we had to buy when they ripped up the mailboxes, there's the place that sells those mailboxes, it's like 3 blocks from me. So we went over there and got the name of that place. They're like $900 a box. And then we bought the boxes, and then we had that light put up. And we also bolted the boxes down before they were easier to steal. And that was all done with homeowners funds.
Yeah, I was on the board when all this was happening. I
Yeah.
wasn't really aware of the solar powered light. I think this is really great. So what I'm wondering, it is, as we all say, it is not our responsibility to put that in, but I would think it would be a really good idea to bring that forward to Lucy Ralston and ask her to bring it forward to the various HOAs where these mail banks are located, and see if we can't have the individual POAs do something constructive to try and help out with the mail theft problems that we're having.
One other, is that price installed, or is that just the price of the unit?
Sure, I think the price of using it, I just pulled it off the internet. I didn't really go into great detail about it, but
So
I just wanted to show that they're out there and they're available.
Right, so there's an additional cost to install it, then you would assume.
Probably, yeah. Well, it seems like, with all the issues that we're having and how very often the POAs are having to replace one of these mailbox banks, that just takes 1 or 2 times, and then you've got your money home again, if this would help stop the issue, the problem. So I don't know how we can go about it, but I would think this is something we could talk to Lucy Ralston about, since she is pretty much, I think, the manager for all the various POAs. Go ahead,
Ms.
Jim.
Byers, if I might just advise the board that Amanda Cessna, who is the person who handles these boxes at the local post office in Temecula, has volunteered to do what she can do to facilitate whatever needs to be done. And we've talked to her about coming to your board meeting next month, just to give her side of it and provide some additional information, just to get the information out there. But you're correct that we really need to get her with Lucy Ralston, because that's all the POAs. And Robert's here tonight representing the one that doesn't have that management company. So maybe we can facilitate getting the parties together. And I know Sam works with her very closely, and he brought her into the office 3 or 4 weeks ago, and she's very willing to cooperate in any way she can. And one thing, at some point, we probably need to give some kudos to the congressman because his office has arranged for the mailboxes in Duluth to be replaced very quickly compared to other areas. So there's a term they use for it. I heard it recently, but Duluth right now is under congressional accommodation, I think is the term. And so the boxes that are damaged in Duluth get quicker. And it's because of our district, the fact that Pedro and Dustin run right out, measure it up, take a picture, send it right in to them. And then we're of course on the high end of the pecking order because of the congressman. So anyway, at some point, maybe we should thank the congressman for that, but with
Yes.
COVID and everything, it hasn't been possible.
Well, if we can put together a letter from the board members and yourself, I think that would be a good thing to do. to show
Okay,
our- Let's do that. Is this
sounds
something,
good.
I don't know that we need to vote on that, but I would presume everybody's on board with that.
Okay, we'll get it done.
Great. All right, so as far as I understand, Jessica, there is no public members. Out
There is one.
there is
President
one.
Byers, we do have one,
Okay,
a member of the public, excuse me. I'm not quite sure
okay.
if this, if he or
So
she
at this
would
Jessica,
like to.
could you
Yeah.
check public comments next?
Yes, exactly. So at this point, if the member of the public would like to address the board, this would be a good time to do it.
Hello, this is Shauna Django.
Hi, Shauna.
Hi, how are you?
We are
The
very good.
reason that I'm here today is I've just got a couple questions. The first question is, are your roads in your district privately maintained public roads? That's the first
Yes.
question. So the answer is
that-
yes.
The
Yes,
answer
they
is
are.
No.
They're not
Yes.
private roads.
They
Public
are
road.
publicly dedicated roads maintained by
Right, so
a public agency using public taxpayer funds.
It's the property owners are the people that maintain the road.
No,
Do they contribute to maintain the road? They don't. they
not
don't
in
have
the
like
way that you're assuming the word contribute. They are taxed
Pay benefit fees.
on the
Okay, so
property
just-
tax bill.
Right, on my property tax bill, I have a special line item that says PRD 20, and I have a benefit fee that is assigned to me that I have to pay. So
Not a
it's the
tax.
pretty, I'm sorry?
Okay, the difference is in the zoning and subdivision process. The county required that these public roads be built. The county board of supervisors accepted them once they were built and inspected. And then they were transferred to the Community Services District, which is a public agency with basically it's a municipal corporation, just like a city. It has the same authority as a city or a county in terms of maintaining those roads. And the reason I can state that the way I did is because this is the whole issue with this gas tax that we've gone through for the last 3 years. So the research is done. It is a public street, just like a public road because it's a county road, but it is publicly maintained. Where we have other private roads within the district of Duluth that we do not maintain, and how those are funded, it's a whole variety of ways. Generally, they have a small, essentially a homeowners association or a limited liability kind of corporation to maintain those. And they generally only serve about 5 homes.
Okay, so when you said that you have 100 or 1.9 million that comes in, that comes in from the taxpayers, like the general taxpayers in your city district.
Correct.
So they are, the homeowners are essentially privately maintaining the roads. It's not people in Temecula or county funds. The county is in no way financing the maintenance of your roads. Is that a
President
correct
Byers.
statement?
President
We
Byers,
are
may I interrupt here?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Public comment period is for public comments. We can have issues with the Brown Act when it comes to a question and answer period because it's not a line item on our agenda. So I think we got to be very careful with the question answer type of format. Normally a public comment is 3 minutes. A person says a comment to the board and then that's it. And if there's an issue that needs to be followed up on, then that's handled at a later meeting.
Thank you for explaining that. I would have just spoke for 3 minutes, but then somebody jumped in. I was just going to ask my questions, but I got the answer that I needed. So I will not take up any more of your time. Thank you.
Yeah, get lost.
Well, thank you for your concerns and thank you for your questions. We appreciate it. Let's move forward to item D on our agenda, and that is for information only. And it's for the financial statements and statement of investment policy. If there's any questions from any of the members of the board, this is the time to take them out and look at them. Does anybody have any questions or concerns regarding this? No. We will move on to consent calendar. And the consent calendar contains the minute of the March regular board meeting, the general fund claims for March 2021, the sheriff's special tax claims for March 2021, and the purchase orders, of which there are none. Can I have a motion to approve these?
So move.
And a second?
Second,
And all in favors, please so indicate. Starting with Ray Johnson, please.
Johnson, aye.
Alan, aye.
Thank you. Byers, aye. Robert Dalsander
Sandry, aye.
and Debbie Roberts.
Roberts, aye.
Thank you. All right. We can then dispense with that. We move on to item F, the Sandia Creek and the Via Vaquera reconstruction projects, which we will learn any updates on from Dave Hunt, please.
Okay, thank you. The process is still going through all the government agencies and stuff like that. They expect to get a permit around the first part of July on that. We have revised all the plans to reflect what FEMA wanted to pay for and specs. And we are going to meet with Marietta in the next week or two and kind of negotiate a change order with them because we're getting close to being able to go out to construction sometime in the summer, hopefully, all depending on when that permit comes in. So that's progressing, and I don't have anything else on that one.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Dave at this point?
How certain, Dave, are you that by July 1, we'll have a permit to proceed on Sandia Creek?
Well, we're dealing with the government agencies, about 5 of them. I try not give any guarantees on anything dealing with them even though we're almost out of the pandemic. So the environmental people seem fairly confident. So I'm going to say we're fairly confident. But I can't guarantee you anything. Is basically the bottom line. Just being honest with you.
Right. Well, we've seen a delay from due to one government agency after another. So we'll keep our fingers crossed and hope this time it will go.
We are ready to go as soon as we get the green light. And
Right.
that's what's important.
I'll bet.
You did talk about a change order. Is there anything specifically big about the change orders that you had to do in order to get the permits?
Well, not to get the permit. But the big change was FEMA said you're replacing a good chunk of the CMP pipe and you're lining the older part. Why don't you get rid of the lining and just replace all the CMP pipe from upstream to downstream, make it a clean shot. So we're getting rid of the expense of lining the CMP, and then we're adding some extra CMP pipe and then some concrete work on the upstream end to tie them all together. I don't expect the total price of the project to change very much. The pros and cons, the pluses and minuses should balance out, should be pretty close. The contractor has a right to come back and say, I need a cost of, kind of call it cost of living increase. There's construction indexes out there about what the average construction costs, prices have gone up from last year to this year. And, he'll probably ask for that, but those are typically pretty low, especially in the pandemic when we haven't had that much inflation. They're worrying about it now, but it's mainly food and stuff like that and gasoline, but not necessarily construction materials. Wood has been up there quite a bit, but
Yeah,
we
what is
don't have any of that out there. So that's the main change, is just getting rid of the lining and extending the pipes all the way.
Okay, great. Well, let's keep our fingers crossed and hope that by July we will get our permits and can move along with that, because it's been a long while.
And
Moving on to item G, Buena Vista reconstruction project. Dave?
okay, Buena Vista, the environmental is almost on identical path as the Sandia Creek. So that's in July also. And things have been turned in. Because the existing plans that was done by previous consultants were never finished, they were at like a 60% level, and we had several major storms go through them and much more. We went out and resurveyed the land out there. We did that last week. Ron is busy putting the plans and specifications together so that we can go out to bid with that. Actually, we'll bring the plans and specs to the engineering committee in May and to the board in May, asking permission to go out to bid. We're going to go out to bid before we the environmental permit so that we can have a contractor on board when the permit comes in. And in the specifications, we're going to put in there that his bid is good for like 5 months. We're going to put in some time frame instead of the typical 90 days, just to give us some leeway in there so that he can't come back and say, oh, you waited too long, I'm going to raise my prices. So we have all that kind of planned out and figured what we're going to do. So that project is progressing. And again, we will be ready to go and start construction as soon as we get the go ahead on the environmental. So both of those projects will be ready to go. And if it all works out great, we're building them both at the same time.
Yeah.
So that'd be great work out there.
Right. Well, again, keeping our fingers crossed and hoping that it may be so. That would be really good. Any questions from anybody else?
Ms. Byers, perhaps I could add one thing that has occurred. On April 1st, we became 90 days out from July 1st. And so I started calling people's cell phones. I think it was April 2nd. We're talking about the environmental staff. They're basically preparing our application to submit to all these 5 environmental agencies. That's Ultra Systems and the other one. Anyway, so things started happening real fast, lots of papers to sign right immediately thereafter. But the one thing is paying all the fees of these state agencies. So it became an issue a few days later that as they're going to these various places and submitting, they need payment. And we'd ask, well, what is the payment? Well, we don't know until they look at our application, blah, blah, blah. So then the question came up at one agency, they wanted their $10,900 fee. And of course, to get the check and take it down and everything. Basically, Wildan, Dave's finance department, came up with a credit card, and they've been paying all of our fees for us. So you'll see that on the claims probably next month or whatever. But this is the other side you don't see. It's one thing to engineering, but just stepping up to the plate with a large amount of credit cards and taking care of it. I was very pleased that they did something like that. So thanks, Dave, and tell your person upstairs that was a nice thing to do.
We're glad.
That
to
probably
help.
saved us a week just fooling around with checks.
We're here to help.
That's great.
Jim,
Yes,
why couldn't you use your Costco card?
I thought about it, but it's only got a $2,000 limit.
To run that one through.
You can all put them all together.
Yeah, so that, Dave, thanks to you and Wilden. We're moving along nicely, and like I said, fingers crossed. Let's hope it all goes through this time as you're predicting.
Yeah.
And I guess, Ron, you're the one that's gonna keep up with that now. So
Ron's the one.
we thank you for that and for your attention to all that. That's great. We move on to traffic safety, and that would be a presentation by our very own traffic engineer, Steve Liebring.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. Okay, so traffic's going to be short and sweet. We're keeping our CMS sign rotated. It was last on El Prado. Tomorrow it's being moved to La Cruz, and we'll keep it rotating around the neighborhoods. We want to thank our sheriff again for his enforcement efforts at the stop signs. And we want to note that we had 30 stop violations in January, 25 in February, and it dropped down to 15 in March. So his efforts are making a difference out there now. So that's great to see. And so we thank you, Sam, for that. On Gatillo, we are working with the homeowner there and the sheriff to get a CCTV camera up and lighting in the area. This is what we had to have cleaned up. This is the area before the cleanup. This was torn down fence that was allowing for all that stuff to be dumped up there. This is the fence that the county replaced afterwards. So it's all, and then you can kind of see through the wire here, but this is the area now. The hillside is completely cleaned of all that debris and dumping stuff. All this work was completed by the county for us. Debbie, this one's for you. We reported the stop sign down, and this sucker got done, I think, the next morning. So it was really good. And that's
Thanks for letting us know.
I'll be happy to answer any questions you have for traffic.
I have one. Can I make a comment about traffic, or not actually traffic, but the signs?
Sure.
Go ahead.
I've lived out there for a long time, and over the past, well, I'd say the first 12 years, 13 years, it was pretty rural, and we didn't have a lot of accidents or much of anything going on. Maybe there's more traffic now, but we've been spending a fortune on signs, and everywhere you go, it's taken away some of the scenic beauty of every corner you go to. For instance, I've driven around the district, but I'll just speak to my one street that I drive every day. There's 10 signs within 300 feet of that intersection. It's like a curve ahead 35, slow to 10, no dumping, this way, that way. I'll take pictures of them, but you know, there's signs on the back of signs. You know, there's signs, no parking. There's, you know, all kinds of stuff. You know, and I would just say, my own personal thing is, please don't put any more signs in zone 5. That's all I want to say. It's getting ridiculous, and I see we spent almost 2,000, actually, over 2,000 on signs this last month. The Lord knows where they went. But, you know, I drive around the district at least 2 or 3 times a month. And living out there, it's pretty obvious when you see these signs go up over time. But I just wanted to make that comment. I've also heard that from other people, and I told them I would bring it up. So I brought it up. So that's it. Thank you.
Okay,
Steve, do you want to, yeah, answer that?
I can answer that clearly. The $2,000, Mike, was for signposts. As you know, we have wooden posts that were all over the county, and those rot over the years. And so we had to buy signposts, and that's what the $2,000. We have not added a single new sign out on Via Santa Rosa, where you're talking about, for well over a year or more. I think the last signs that went up, except for the no parking sign that was put up there on the vacant lot where the carpooling was taking place. But other than that, the last sign that went up was a couple of years ago when we worked with Julie to put up the Duluth Beautiful signs and stuff. So we're not adding signs overall. We're replacing a lot of signs. We've updated a few signs that have gotten damaged or where look at, but we're not really adding any signs to any great extent. 1 or 2 here or there, but not to the numbers you're talking about. That was supplies, Mike, that's being used all over the whole district, and that's mostly post.
Oh, I'm just saying there's 10 signs right in that intersection. I don't
Yeah,
know.
Oh, there are.
and I came here 3 years ago, and there was 7 or 8 of those signs already there. So I will see. Maybe I can consolidate a few of them, take a few down for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for the input. Yeah.
No, that's fine. I'm used to them. I mean, I haven't said anything, but some other people mentioned it. So I said, I won't do any good, but I'll mention it.
All right.
Okay.
So good.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Steve. We move on to the next part. Yes.
All right. So got a lot of things going on this last month, and so we'll go through these each. But we sprayed for weeds along several shoulders and arterials, and I want to highlight that this was about $100 worth of materials to have our staff go through and spray the weeds. So this is one of the nice things that we can do in-house that's relatively inexpensive. We also mowed for weeds along these streets, and we'll continue to keep doing that for the next week or so. We continue to send out letters to homeowners to trim their shrubs wherever they can. So that saves us having to do anything. We're working with the sheriff on the dumpings. We have those constantly happening. We have new situations like this, the portable toilets and crates being left in the street. So we're working with those people to get these out of our roads. This was the beehive. It was out on Avenida Tierra, and this is now the next day after we called them and said, get those things out of our right of way. We took time to revisit the 223 drains, I'm sorry, to make sure that there's no additional growth that's accumulated. We're now looking to test a few and see what the silt in the pipes looks like and come back with a progress on that. We're making progress. This is the last water leak. We had about 4 or 5, as you know, in the last 4 or 5 months. This is the last water leak that the Rancho Water District has repaired. So we're good to go there. We had a nice safety issue we got caught out in the middle of the night for on Los Gatos. Truck decided to dump its load on that 26% incline. The CHP responded. Staff was called out to move the materials off the road. As you can see, you can't see it. There's a big pile there that's about 2 or 3 feet high and about maybe 10 by 20 or 10 by 10. And so good news is nobody hit the thing. Next few days, we spent clearing the stuff out of there. We took a lot of truckloads out of there of this stuff. There's a picture of that. Brought it all back to the yard and dumped it at the yard, tossed it in our bin. And now this is what the shoulder looked like after all that stuff is cleared. And they have the staging area in the next slide that we had to clean up too. And so we're good to go back to normal again.
And the adjacent homeowner called at the office and commended the crews at how quickly they got this mess cleaned up and how nice they left it in terms of getting all the debris out of there. because some of it went on his property also, but he was very pleased with the crew. And that was Pedro driving that tractor in the middle of the night. So he and Steve, I got the call from CHP about 10 o'clock Friday night, and they maintained the roadblock until sunup because it was really too dangerous for our people to be doing this at that time. So we all agreed that we would wait till sunup. They left a CHP there, and Pedro was up there with the tractor, and Steve right behind him, following him before the break. You can see it was still dark, and cleared it, got that out of the way, and by Wednesday, the whole thing was completely cleaned up. So they did a great job.
I have a question. Does well, it's a traffic engineer, but also superintendent for our district. Steve, are you equipment operator? Are you able to operate any of this equipment?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I operated the traffic control, the stop paddle.
Excellent.
I'm really qualified in that. Ongoing activities, we rented our skid steer again, and this is an example of its use. We had a drain out on Sandia Creek, and that's what it looks like when you spend about 30 minutes with the skid steer. So it's a nice piece of equipment. It handles things very quickly and gets in those tight little spots that other stuff we have can't. Finally, we had yesterday a pothole that exposed it. And when we exposed it, we found out that there was a large undermining void underneath the pothole. This is being held together by the rebar that you see there. So they took the removals out there. Then they cleared it up. Then they take the skid steer and dump it into the dump truck, haul it off. They bring the skid steer back full of asphalt and lay it down. In the meantime, back up one if you could there, Jessica. And that traffic control is being done by our staff while this crew came out to take care of this. So we were out there all day with them. Okay. And there's the final paving job now. So tomorrow, the next day, I should say, we note that we see another hole very similar. And this is what it looks like when you zoom in down the hole. We got a 4-foot hole down there that's 3 or 4 feet wide that needs, so that's on the list to be repaired immediately. And that's our report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, I'm sure happy to see that our crew under your guidance is being so very timely in getting repair crew out and getting it taken care of, so that nobody is exposed to any danger from these potholes. It looks to me the first one you showed, was that the one at Carancho?
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes. Oh.
That was, yes, okay. And then the second one, is that the one on Via Horca?
No.
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 This is another one as well. Okay. Well, again, thank you for all your great work and attention to all the various matters and getting it done expeditiously. We really do appreciate that. So good work, Steve.
I'll
Thanks.
pass it on to the crew. Thank you.
Yeah, please. Yes, please tell them. All right, we move on to item I, which is the committee reports. And the first one of our reports would be on the engineering committee. So Debbie, if you would please enlighten us what's going on there.
Okay, well, once again, the engineering committee met on April the 13th. And as both individuals, Steve and Dave, have discussed with you, the items they just previously mentioned, plus some additional ones by Steve today. So they pretty much covered everything that needed to be addressed. And I know Ray and I also really want to thank both of them and all the staff, because let me tell you, these two groups of individuals certainly keep on top of everything and make things much easier for us when we sit down and meet at these meetings. So I have nothing further to add. How about you, Ray? Anything there for you?
Yep.
He doesn't have none, Dad.
Okay,
They're
good.
doing great.
That's it for us.
Okay, thank you. Finance Committee, Robert, would you let them know what we're doing on the Finance Committee?
Okay, we met yesterday and we reviewed the March 2021 claims, and those have already been presented in the consent calendar. However, I had asked Jim and Teresa to report on one of the expenditures to Willdan and explain that, because we have expanded the definition in terms of how we're reporting those claims. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim, and he and Teresa can then perhaps talk about that.
The definition.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Let's see, let me get.
Before you go, Jim.
Let me get back to that sheet here.
Yeah, if you go back, if everyone goes back to the claims of March 2021 in the consent agenda.
Yeah.
That's what
Well,
you need to look at.
I've asked Teresa to break out, here we go, the pass-throughs as far as the environmental goes, because we've got two companies that work as subs. This came about really as a request of our FEMA representative, who's with us like every week. And when FEMA rejected the original environmental assessment, they wanted to keep it rolling. So Willdan basically made these two companies subs. Well, this company subs on the FEMA work. And then we just did the exact same thing a month or so later when we decided to go forward with Buena Vista. So anyway, that's broken out separately, and we'll continue to do that so that you can, because those are big numbers. Those were close to $100,000 contracts, and they're being completed at so naturally the heavy expense is now because they're nearing completion. Essentially, and then I've asked Teresa to break out these invoices, and I've asked Willdan to prepare invoices, different invoices on the different projects. So the first thing you see here is Buena Vista for $4,228. That's design work. And you also have to remember that this is January's work because they do the work in January. Just use January as an example. They do the work in January. The first few weeks of February, they're turning in their timesheets in Willdan. And then in the second half of the month, Willdan is preparing the invoices. So we're getting these invoices like the 1st of March. Teresa's paying them the middle of March. And then it appears on the April claim. By the time this document gets to this meeting, this is primarily, so anyway, a lot of these projects have already been wrapped up because they were done in January. The roadway rehab GIS, I believe that was Buena Vista. Also the survey that Dave did. Dave, just jump in and correct me if this is wrong. Dave and Ron's time, 3515. Traffic engineering 4440, and that was January. I'm trying to remember that heavy on Steve that month. Oh, I know what it was. That was when that's Steve's time for road, which goes back to being paid out of roadway rehab because he oversaw the striping project. So that was wrapping up the striping and the inspection there. And also the slurry, he did a little inspecting for $116 there. Or no, that was Ron for 16. Project planning, I believe that's Sandia Creek, because it's roadway rehab also. And then all the account numbers that Teresa put in there. So I think this is a better way of showing what these costs are instead of just one big lump, which seems like it's, extremely high. This is how it breaks down.
I appreciate that. I think that the point, just as you say, we see these large numbers and it's important to know what was done. That question has come up before. And I think now that we're going to be doing it this way, it becomes much more obvious what the costs are within those large numbers. So I want to thank you. I know that's a lot of work for Teresa, and she does a great job. And so we want to thank her as well. So that's one of the things that we looked at. Another thing we looked at was the final preparations for payroll direct deposit are going on, and we're going to be instituting the online payment for May 1st. So Teresa and I are going to get together and do that with Banner Bank in the wings. In case anything happens that we need help with, they'll be there. So we're proceeding with that. We also talked a little bit about the unfunded liability we have with CalPERS, and also discussed the fact that there is an additional amount that we are paying interest for the new employees under a different program. Teresa came up with the suggestion that we could save about $3,000 if, instead of paying the interest to CalPERS monthly, that we pay it once a year. And we think that that's probably a good idea to go ahead and do that. So I don't think we necessarily need a board motion for that, since the amount is budgeted and it's just a matter of how it's paid. Any issue with that? Okay. I also want to point out that the Employee Compensation Committee, or the Compensation Committee for the employees, has been meeting, and I'll be meeting with them along with Jim to discuss their interests probably next week or the week after, and we will be presenting that to the board in May. This is for their contract renewal, which I guess begins July 1, and so we'll need to bring that to the board for final approval. We'll be discussing that with them, may have a few meetings with them, and then bring that on to the board. I think that's really about it. The other is that our interest rate is at a steady 0.35%. And oh yeah, there was one other thing that I wanted to mention that is very important. We looked at the assignment of funds to roadway rehabilitation. And there is an emergency component that I think Mike probably remembers the board implemented some years ago in case there's a big washout. And that fund has about $1.1 million in it. And about 600,000 of that is assigned to the primary roads, Sandia Creek, et cetera. As you know, the funds are broken down into district and central funds. And so about half of all the funds in this emergency fund are in the districts, and the other half is in the primary road fund. We had a discussion about this and feel that it would be important for the board to make a commitment to keep at least $1 to $1.3 million in the emergency fund, and at least 600,000 of that in the central fund. This would be there for any emergency contingency. For example, if we had another major storm and a washout, those funds would be there and available.
Isn't that the way it is now, Robert?
That's the way it is, but I don't think we've ever basically said, the board has made a decision that those dollar amounts should be what we have. We should
Well,
keep it.
we made that decision when we put that amount into that fund, specifically for the rainy day fund. Like
That's exactly right. Maybe we should look back and see how the board did that. If we need to reaffirm that, then we might need to do that. If not, then we don't need to do that. That's really what we were talking about. And maybe Jim can take a look at that and go back and see how that was done. And but I think we should, as you're saying, Mike, commit to those dollar amounts being in that fund. I think that's the content of the meeting. Marion, did you want to bring up anything else?
No, I think you covered it pretty well. So, yeah, good reporting, Robert. I will move on to the legislative committee report on our gas tax issue. As you all know, we've been working on that first round that lasted, almost 2 years. And now we're going around it one more time with hopefully with the help from Senator Melendez. Now we have been working with the Melendez staff, and at this point we are going to have to move our bill from a 1-year legislation time period into 2 years, because we are running into the usual oppositions from various entities, both within the county and from stateside. There's really no reason to insist on a 1-year time frame if we don't get the votes that are necessary to enable us to go through as far as legislation. So the update is it will be a 2-year bill, and that means that the Transportation Committee, that we were basically going to be our next step with our bill, is now going to be relegated to next year, sometime probably February, March. Isn't that about right, Jim?
Correct.
So that's the update I can give you at this point. We're running into a couple of roadblocks, hoping we can get beyond that and move this forward again. Any questions? Okay, then we will move on to the general manager's report, and that would be you, Jim.
Okay, the large item deposit and pickup run by CR&R twice a year is scheduled for April 24th. So I'm expecting that to be very popular again this year. The issue of code enforcement topic has come up. I don't want to get into any detail, but I just want you to know we're monitoring a code enforcement action by the county regarding what do we call it? A venue situation where a property owner is doing primarily wedding receptions and other kinds of social events on their property. And it happens to be on a cul-de-sac, which is public, which is why I'm bringing this up. And that serves 5 parcels. They are in, that property owner is in what do you say, under enforcement action by county code enforcement. We have been shown photographs that they are using the road right away on that small cul-de-sac for porta potties and extra parking. We haven't officially observed that, but we've seen photographs. Anyway, the code enforcement, it's a county issue. It's a zoning violation. It violates health codes and things like that. We're not getting involved in it, but we're monitoring it. And a few days ago, we received a letter from a representative of the property owner wanting to vacate that cul-de-sac and make it a private street. Well, under the Streets and Highways Code, in order to convert a public street to a private street, it requires the legislative body, that means you, to conduct a hearing and make a finding that the roadway is no longer of any valuable use to the general public at large. That's going to be, it always is, a very difficult finding to make. But in addition, we don't own the street itself. The road right-of-way is still owned. If we closed up business here, that road still, it was accepted by the county of Riverside. It's underlying it's their road. So I believe it would take then, they would have to go, if you approved it, they would still have to go to the Board of Supervisors, who would unaccept that dedication. Anyway, it's a long road and we're not sure what the game is, but code enforcement, that's not our jurisdiction, that's county. But we are being pulled into this a little bit. And I know that it's somewhat of an emotional issue on that neighbor's blog or whatever it is. So I just thought you needed to know that there's something going on there. And
I have a question.
that's what it's about. Yes, sir.
What's the name of the road?
It's off Duluth. Steve?
Dos Rios.
Yeah, Dos Rios.
Los Cerritos?
Dos, D-O-S, like two.
Yeah, Dos Cerritos.
No, Rios,
Rios.
R-I-O-S, like rivers, two
Two
rivers.
Rivers. Yeah.
Can you spell it? I forgot. I can't hear you.
Okay, D-O-S, like two, in
Yeah,
in
right,
Spanish.
Dos.
And then Rios,
Oh,
R-I-O-S.
Rios, I got it. Oh, Rios, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I passed 7th grade. Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Del Rios, Dos Rios.
Yeah. Right.
That's my limit, Jim.
And then I just
Four-letter
wanted to advise that we're going to have, it's going to be a fairly lengthy meeting, both in May and June. We've got the budget coming up. So we got the two public hearings on the benefit assessment, the sheriff tax. And we're also going to do a presentation on this whole IT project. And so that will be coming up in May and June. That concludes my remarks.
Okay, thank you. That was quite a bit that you had to report on, so we appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions for Jim?
I'll do that.
Okay, then we will move on to item K, the legal counsel matters. And Ward, if you would please let us know what's going on.
I have a couple matters to talk about. A couple months ago, I was briefly mentioned Senate Bill 1383 was adopted a couple of years ago by the legislature, which directs the California Department of Resources, CalRecycle, to adopt regulations to reduce organic waste by 50% from its 2014 baseline level by 2020, and then another 75% by 2025. The 1383 regulations are now final, and the cities, counties, and special districts providing solid waste service are supposed to take specific measures to divert organic waste from landfills. And jurisdictions must adopt enforceable mechanisms such as ordinances or franchise agreements to require individuals, businesses generating waste, and waste haulers to comply by January 1st, 2022. The thing is that because Duluth is so small, there is what we've discovered, that there is the potential for Duluth, at least that we believe at this point from our early research, that it can apply for a waiver from the department. The waiver is so early in the process, the department hasn't developed the waiver process yet. So we're monitoring that for Duluth. The waiver is available for census tracts and a population density of less than 75 people per square mile that are served by jurisdictions located in the unincorporated county. So we're monitoring that, and we're hoping that we can apply for a waiver for the district for complying with SB 1383. We'll keep you informed as things develop. Any questions on that? The second thing is, you probably are aware that on June 15th, I believe it is, that Governor Newsom is lifting a lot of the restrictions that were imposed by the pandemic. A lot of people have been asking what's going to go on with the Brown Act, and are we going to start meeting in person again? The legislature is considering 3 bills now to potentially make some of these changes, some of the waivers to the Brown Act provisions permanent. One of them is called AB 703. That it appears that most public officials consider this the most likely one that will pass. It allows for virtual meetings indefinitely and permanently removes existing Brown Act rules limiting virtual meetings or requiring public attendance at various physical locations. One of the great conveniences of the waiver have been that in the old days, you probably remember that when a board person was in the hospital or in a hotel room and wanted to participate at a board meeting, you had to stick an agenda outside your door and allow access to the public to come in and attend with you if they were there. And that you haven't had to do that during this last year. And a lot of people like that. So that is one bill. Another bill is AB 361, which only allows virtual meetings for declared emergencies. So that's a pullback of where we are today. They would only allow virtual meetings to happen if there was a declared local emergency. And then the third bill is probably the most onerous, Assembly Bill 339, which makes virtual meetings mandatory. The first bill was optional. The second bill was limited. Now this third bill is kind of the most extreme. It would provide that it would require public boards to continue to provide virtual access for the public, even if all board or council members attend in person. And in addition, there's one other extra onerous provision in this bill, and it would not only require virtual access, but it would also add in new provisions to the Brown Act requiring public agencies to provide live translation services during all meetings, including real-time translators during all meetings and a translation of all agendas and meeting instruction materials into languages spoken by 5% or more of the jurisdiction's population. So we're closely monitoring all 3 of these bills. We'll put out a report when at the end of the legislative session here at the end of the summer to tell you which one or one or more of them pass, what the new rules will be permanent, what they will be. That's my report, President Byers.
Thank you very much. So we can expect some kind of clarity as to which one or if any of them that will be coming this summer.
Yes, that's correct.
Sounds good. Okay. Well, unless anybody has any other questions or comments, I believe this concludes our meeting. And does anybody have any questions, comments? All right, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great evening.
Yes,
Bye.
have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye now.